Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial of Python. You are watching Boundary Rider. Today we are going to learn about variables in detail. In Python, variables are reserved memory locations. So whenever you work with a project, you will get situations to store variables in your code, like temporarily storing some value in your code. So for that, you have to declare variables. You can create string, boolean, and integer values as variables. You can declare string values, boolean, or a list, or you can even assign a function into a variable. From this, you can understand variables are memory location to hold a specific value. Variables can hold small, large, or medium type of values in it. You can even assign large values into a variable, but keep in mind if the value is growing beyond a limit, it can throw memory errors in your program. Like if you are creating a variable and if your program has some issue and the program is assigning a larger value into the variable, or if the program is making the variable to grow beyond a limit, that can throw memory errors, and your system memory will be completely consumed for the specific variable, and it can throw multiple different kind of errors and your program will unexpectedly shut down. I can repeat again. Variables are memory allocations, like I already told you, and you can assign any type of value into a variable in Python. In Python, you can declare variables of specific types like string, integer, or boolean, or a custom type. But uh, even after declaring a string variable, you can even assign a number into it, but it won't throw any errors in Python. Unlike other programming language, Python has this advantage. Sometimes it will be a disadvantage as well. Usually we will use variables to hold some value in your program, which is used by multiple different functions or multiple different places in the same code. Now let's start with an example. I'm here with my PyCharm Studio, so I'm going to declare a variable. So declaring a variable is very simple. You can just type a name, like for example, employee underscore name. This is a variable, so I'm going to assign a value to it. Employee name is Alex. So now this is a variable. I can print this value and let's see the result. So you can see Alex got printed. So writing a name and assigning something into it is all you need to create a variable in Python. So if I have to use a specific type of variable, I can use it employee age. So if it is an integer, I can say int and then 25. So Alex is 25-year-old. And if you run it, this program will run fine. And you can see I assigned a string value into it. And for example, here I'm going to create a function. Definition create employee. So the argument of this one is name, that is a string type, and then age is of integer type. So I'm going to print the name and age. So now if I run it, I don't get any error. So now I'm going to call this function. So I'm going to call this function. So you can see it's expecting the name as string and age as integer. So this this information is coming from how I declared it here. So for example, it is asking a name variable as a string value. So I'm going to pass 15 as the name and age as Alex. It's not throwing any error. You can see if I run it, the program will run fine. Because even if in Python, even if I declare a type, it won't throw any error if I pass a different type of value into it. But the only advantage is it will show this information like this. Whenever I assign a type, it will show some information to the developer to pass some right value into it. So here it is showing name a string. This will help the developer to understand this specific function is expecting the name as a string value and age as an integer value. So, and this is the use of assigning a type in Python for a variable. Other than that, in other programming language, it will throw errors if I send a different type of value into it. But in Python, if I declare a function like this, it is not throwing any error. And it is an advantage for someone and it is a disadvantage for someone. So if I am not passing any variable, it will throw error saying there is no variable. So this is how you can create a variable. And variable can be any type, like flag. So I am creating a flag variable which is a boolean type, boolean and false. And even I can create a list or an array as a variable. So employees is an array or a list. It's a list of employees. Alex, Sam, and this is a variable. And I can even store a function into a variable. So I'm going to define a function. So create. It's a very simple function just to indicate something, name. So without any argument I can create it. Print created. So it's a very simple function. I can even assign this function into a variable. Create function equal to create. If I run it, you can see that it is executing this create. So if I assign it like this, it's not going to execute the function, and other than that, it will just assign this value into the specific variable. So now I can call this variable like this just to execute the function. You can see it is calling the function and printed the created message. So why I moved this down is in Python, this if I declare this above this specific function, it is executing line by line, right? So it will call this specific variable and specific line before initiating this specific function. So we have to call it only after the function is created. So for that only I am adding this below the create function. So from this we can understand, we can create a variable like this, and also you can assign a function into it and call the function like this. So here create function is a variable, and I am assigning this create function into it, and then I am calling the variable just to execute this create function. So from this you can understand this is how you can create and use a variable in your code. So this is all for this video tutorial. In the next video tutorial, let's understand a little bit more about variables and functions.